Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Atlas podcast. I'm your host, Coach Atlas, coming to you live from a brand new home. Gabby and I just recently moved from the inner city vibes of Calgary to the outskirts, more of the suburban life. And we've been settling in, moving. It always feels good to start. And then as you start to get into the process, and there seems to be just more mud and more stickiness, literally and metaphorically, than you think. And so the cleaning, the organizing, the new things you need for the new home, all of that is still settling in. And so, as we call this is phase one of this brand new home in this brand new environment. It's been a long time coming for us. We have lived inner city life for a while. And so our systems are set up for the chaos of downtown. And so we decided, as we start to talk about the next steps in our relationship and what we're building, that the suburban life is more in tune with those desires and with those outcomes that we're going after. So we are here in a brand new home with brand new setup. Ironically enough, not something I think we've taken into consideration enough, but we've never really had a home where we have built it kind of from the ground up. We have had multiple different places of living, from Toronto to Calgary to Mexico to Costa Rica to I've spent some time in Dallas. She's lived in Vancouver for a while. We've jumped around a lot in our lives. And so what we're trying to do for now the first time is really settle into something that we're building. And so the things that we have in our home are finally ours for the most part. We have always got furnished homes where everything is somebody else's. And so you always have this disconnect with the things that are in your home when you haven't been able to build a story out of the way that you've achieved them, or how you've obtained them. And so it feels really nice and more homey to be able to finally sit into that position and say, this desk is this story from this person, and we did the Facebook marketplace vibe, and this is how we achieved all of this, and it just feels a lot more close to us as a dynamic. And so we're settling in. And as I consider this step, it's very fresh. It's August 3rd. We've had the week now to move. We finally gave up our old place on Friday. We have had a lot of conversations about what this step looks like. And we've also run into some challenges, some barriers around this next step. And one of the ones that's natural anytime you move is financial. It costs a lot to move. There's damage deposits involved. There's new items involved. There's costs of just moving in general. It's not an inexpensive venture. And so, you mix that with the desire to build a new home, the excitement of new things, the organization, the things that you're like, oh, we should do this here, and we should plan this here, and we should put this up here. All of these plans and systems come into place, and they all require money. And so when it comes to this venture, we've called this step phase one, where everything that we have now, this is how we're going to live for about a month or so, the month of August. This is phase one, and we're going to settle in here. And we're doing so, again, obviously, to continue to rebuild or repair the financial hit that moving generally happens. And in that process, it just got me thinking about seasons of relationships. And this is the topic of today's episode: is what does it mean to start a new season? You think about the seasons of nature, right? Spring, summer, fall, winter. You think about the seasons that go around in a secular nature. They all come and they all go, right? And so when it comes to a relational dynamic, I think the biggest question that Gabby and I have started to ask ourselves is, what season are we in right now? Are we in spring? Are we in summer? Right? What season are we entering? And what does that look like? What's the dynamic here? What are our expectations of each other and of the time we have in this season? So, I'll give an example of how this really came up. I recently came back from Dallas, Texas, and I was there for work. And the transition back was a difficult one because I had decided to leave the job that I was working in Dallas and came back. And the season was a bit of a open loop. It was unaddressed. It wasn't very well communicated, and there was a lot of hope. There was a lot of unclear expectations. There was a lot of a mud. And sure enough, we ran into a decent amount of issues. It was not only the challenge of reuniting after 9 months of long distance, now living back in the same home with the same environment that we used to have, but it was also a difference in routine, and it was also a difference in financials. And so a lot changed. And what we didn't do a great job at was getting ahead of potential failure. And what I mean by that is the old, corny quote, failing to plan is planning to fail. And the reality of any season of a relationship is if you're entering something brand new and you aren't having a conversation at the beginning of that season about what this is going to look like together, then theoretically, right, you are planning to fail because you're not planning. And so what we didn't do was plan. We didn't have any sort of plan or structure in place. And it took a bit for us to finally put one together. And it lasted about 2 months, is what the whole season of it was going to be. And what we needed to get clarity on, and this is where I extend some of these questions to you. What we needed to get clarity on was what are we both going to be spending our time doing, and what is it being built towards, and what's the priorities right now. Ultimately, that's the big question. What's our priority right now in this season, whatever season we're in? And you think about the seasons of nature. You think about summer, right? Summer is the priority is fun, right? Get the sun, get out there, enjoy yourself, be social, don't waste the good vibes, right? High energy music and so on. And then you think about winter, and it's a bit more sullen. For those folks that are in Calgary, it's quite long. It can be a little bleak, dark. Even though there's sun, you can feel a little depressed because you can't go outside. It's a bit more of a okay, let's get through this kind of season. And when it comes to a relational dynamic, we have very similar seasons, and the priority shifts between seasons. So our priority was get through the next 2 months with the priority of building this and building this. And the outcome needed to happen. And if it didn't, here's how we would shift. And what that looked like was adjusting the expectation of how much time we knew we would be able to spend together. Meaning, if there was, a couple hours here that we knew were more or less open, we knew that the expectation was that the other person would be working or doing extra work to continue to build towards what we wanted to build. And we set that agreement together. We knew and were clear on that. And it started to clear a lot of the mud. It started to open up a lot more connection opportunities, ironically enough, because we knew what was expected of certain timeframes. And we also knew that we had to start putting in place time together on a more clear level, in a more clear way. And this is why I always talk about scheduling date night, because life's busy and it will get away from you. And when we don't schedule time together, it can often lead to unclear expectations in small micro moments where one person thinks it's time to connect and the other person is like, well, we didn't agree to that. And here's what I know I need to do. And so being just clear together on what that looks like, I think is really helpful. I think it creates the clarity that's necessary for smooth transitions, for smooth seasons. And, you adjust as you go, right? You can't expect summer to be sunny all the time, right? So when it's rainy, you adjust your priority that day and you shift with how the season shows up for you. If you're in Calgary and you've just experienced July, your expectation of summer was poorly outcomed, right? It was very rainy. It wasn't that sunny. We had hoped for a better July. And so even though the season was full of high hopes, high expectations, those had to be adjusted as we went. And people had to find a way to still make their priorities achieved, even though. And so what it looks like for our relational dynamic is, again, just understanding what season are you in? What's the priority here, both individually and collectively? Right? What is the expectation that you have of each other in this season of life, in this season of relationing? Maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it needs to be a year. But what's the season right now? And what is the collective dynamic going to look like? Right? For a lot of us, parenting is a really good example of seasons. Right now, we're in a season of brand new baby. And so, okay, great. Like, I really hope we get to spend time together is not planning for baby season, right? It's not planning to prioritize the things that are important. And so, how do you find the way to make sure that that remains a priority? And maybe, obviously, because a baby is unpredictable, it is saying, hey, listen, every single day, we're going to make it a priority to talk and make sure that today we connected. And if we didn't, tomorrow, we're going to demand that we make time for it, no matter what the cost. So, even if it's 10 minutes on the phone when you're at work and I'm at home with the baby, or in the morning, or late at night when we're finally get a chance to, maybe get an little extra sleep, we're going to take 15 minutes and just connect. Right? Whatever it is that you need to do to set the expectation in that season, that's the conversation that we're having here. And again, the priority of the season and the planning of the season is so crucial in an effort to prevent unnecessary failure, unnecessary conflict, unnecessary disagreement or misalignment. Right? We get ahead of it by talking about it first and doing our best to plan it out. Just like any sort of business, truthfully, you put everything on a whiteboard, you figure it all out, you put it in place, and sure enough, the economy or somebody quits, or the business plan fails, like whatever it is, right? At least you started with something and you can adjust from there. So I encourage you right now just to take stock. What season are you in? Have you identified that yet? Do you think that your partner agrees with that specific season? What's your expectation of them right now in this season? What are you looking for? What's missing? And what, as a dynamic, do you believe is some fair agreements, some fair commitments that both of your expectations can be met within fairness and respect, in understanding what season you are in, what phase you are in? And I use the word phase again, coming back to the conversation about the phase of our move. Is the reality is that we will not be adding to the home for a couple of weeks, and that just frees up the mind to focus on everything else instead of thinking, oh, I wonder if we could get this. Oh, I don't know, can we afford it? Should we do it? Like ironically, structure creates freedom. We put in place the structure of the season, the structure of the phase, and therefore it allows us to feel more free to connect, to build other things, to get after our businesses, and so on. So if you're not in a relationship right now and you're listening to this and you're single, the seasons still apply to you. Right? The season of life still applies to you. So what season are you in? Is it winter, ironically enough, for you? And is it the next 2 months you need to get after it? Great. Set the parameters in place. Make sure you have clarity around how you're going to refuel, how you're going to re-energize, how you're going to care for yourself while simultaneously getting after it so that you can sustain it. Right? What we don't do is build systems that are going to drain us. We don't put in systems that will literally create failure. We put in systems to have all of the priorities in place, right? Just because we're prioritizing business or money doesn't mean we stop prioritizing our health, because without health, there is no business. So again, just creating that awareness of a season of life, a season of grinding mode, a season of relaxation, a season of pure connection. When I talk to my clients, I remind them, listen, this is a season of growth, which means there's going to be some difficulty here. So let's set the precedent and let's set some clear expectations here of how difficult this might be, but how easy we can make it. And I think that can be another great takeaway for today's chat is every season is going to be difficult and will be challenging, but it's more difficult and more challenging if we don't get ahead of that, if we don't start to have the conversation now about what that looks like. And my goodness, does that ever create some solid safety and some solid security in our relationship? That's what I got for you today. I hope this was valuable. If you did find it valuable, I'd love to hear more about what season you're in and how you're navigating it. and drop it in the comment if you're on Spotify. If not, let me know on socials at the relationship coach underscore. If you're looking to take this work on a more deep personal level, and you know that transition and season changes and different phases of the relational operations is difficult, then I encourage you to reach out and let's get a discovery call in. Let's have the conversation about getting some extra support at the relationship coach underscore, or just email me directly at atlasmecca@gmail.com, and we can start the conversation, or just book a discovery call yourself, and we can start to get to work. Outside of that, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for your patience again with the delay in episodes. We are excited to be in our new home, and I'm excited to be able to bring you some incredible podcast episodes from this new settled space. I have a firm belief that being outside of the chaos of the inner city downtown is going to open up or bloom new ideas, new concepts, and just more of a settled experience for everybody. So thanks for your patience. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.